We're live. Petting the golden retriever. Hello, how you doing? How you doing? Hello, 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 hello. Hi. Oh, chew on my arm. There you go. Chew on my arm. That's what he does. Okay. Today we're going to talk about the V10 Ford because I've been emailing back and forth with the guys from COMMP Cams who have obviously helped me out over the years. So shout out to the guys at COMMP Cams. And when I was at the MPMC conference, I talked to them about, I told them that I want to run a V10 because I had never done it before. And I wanted to know if they had any cam blanks available. They said that they didn't have any cams, like shelf cams available for the V10s, but that they thought that they still had some cores available that they could make cams from. So the thing is, essentially I get to choose what cams I would want to do on the V10. And more than likely what would happen is I would do something based off of lobes that they've already done for the single overhead cam, 2-valve stuff. This will be a 2-valve 6/8 that we would run and not a 3-valve. I have a couple options available to me. One, my buddy Bart, who said I could use his motor. He has one sitting there. I could just go. You just need to go pick it up in Arizona, which is not too far. That's just down the road from West Tech, just the next state over. Pretty easy, nice, easy little jaunt over there to pick that up. That would be good. The and right now that one has stock cams. I could also get one from the wrecking yard and put that in also, and we could run some tests on that. The one that I would get from Bart, I know is a running motor. It also, the thing that I like about it is it also has his custom intake manifold. He did a shorter runner version of the manifold, which I like. Now I would like to go get a stock intake also and kind of compare that, because if we have an aftermarket one, or not a modified versions, a short runner version with a bigger plenum that he also did that setup to run a turbo on or twin turbos on it, which would also be good. It's always good to run boost on stuff, and that would be pretty easy to configure on the dyno. That's not too hard. And then we could run, I think that the guys from Hooker have headers for them, which would be good. So I need to get, I'll leave myself a note, V10 headers. So we could run headers and run the stock exhaust manifolds. Also might use the stock exhaust manifolds for the turbo application. We just do some kind of single, because the motor itself is only rated at 310 horsepower, I think, on the 2-valve. So it's not, it's not going to make a ton of power. It will make more than when we run a 260 horsepower PI 4.6, it probably is going to be closer to 300 the way that we run it. So I would think that this one probably would be in the 350 range or so, the way that we run it on the engine dyno with, no accessories and stuff. We just run it with a Mazir electric water pump because we have a modular Ford Mazir electric water pump. Don't have to run any accessories on it. We run, especially if we ran it with headers on it and then optimized tune. I'm thinking it would be near 350 or 360. And then I was taking a look at all the cams that I've run on the 4.6 valves, because we would base the camshaft for the V10s off of load profiles or designs that they already have that they've made for the V8s. They just would apply it to this core. And so we could run, 262, 268, 270, 274, 278, all these different cams on it. What we would need to do is run a cam profile that would fit stock piston to valve clearance, because I don't really want to take the motor apart just yet. We just would run it the way that it is, unopened. Like all the Coyote guys like to say. We run it unopened and just, if we just run 7 pounds or whatever on it, if we run the turbo on it. But the camshaft should help it a lot. Looking back at the cam stuff, it's been a while since I ran modular Ford cams, but luckily I have all the data. So looking back at all the cam tests that I ran on the 4.6 valve, you're looking at 40 horsepower or more gain from cams. And the ones that I way back that went running on the 4.6 stuff that I like the best, I like the smallest cams the best. I like the 262s because those always worked well. And when I did the comparison, actually, I didn't do the comparison. It was my motor, and I got all the cams from COMMP Cams. And I think that I think something was going on. I think I might have been sick or something. And Tom and the guys from West Tech actually ran those cam swaps for me. And so I was just on the phone with them while they were doing it. And so he did the tuning and stuff on those. But it looks like, going back through that data, the other cams that are bigger than the 262 on an otherwise kind of stock motor, um, didn't show a bunch of gain, which I thought was kind of odd. Let me look at the test data here. 4.6 single overhead cam, no accessories, electric water pump, inch and 5/8 hooker, super comp headers, collector extensions, and Flowmaster mufflers. This had a bullet intake manifold on it, which is weird because I thought we had a PI intake manifold on there. So it had that cast aluminum bullet intake manifold on there. At any rate, I've run the two cams that I've run, or the two groups of those cams that I've run fairly successfully and made pretty decent power with, are the 262 cams, which is what I should have put in my Mustang when I ran it. I had a non-PI 98 Mustang GT that I did a bunch of stuff with, and we ended up putting cams in it. I put 274 cams in it only because I ran those cams a lot on stuff, and we ended up making 400 on a modified non-PI PI hybrid with those cams, and so we know that those cams made good power. But driving around, those were not good cams for driving around. It lost so much power down low where you're using that more often than not, that it just wasn't a good, if you're racing around all the time, they would be fun, but anymore, those would not be the cams that I would pick for something I was driving around. For a dyno thing, it probably would make good power, and I think that the 274s would fit. They're a 236 240 at 50, and those are 500 lift. I could alternately go with the 270 cams, which are 234 238 but 550 lift. I would tend to lean toward the higher lift cam. I think it would be better. I'm right now I'm leaning toward the 262 cams to run on the V10. But the other thing to think about here is that we have more displacement, because these modular V10s are actually more like a 5.4 with extra cylinders on it. So we have to feed more displacement, or more displacement than the 4.6. So these cams will be, relatively speaking, will kind of be milder on the V10 than they would on a 4.6 valve. So it should tame the cams down a little bit. And so if I knew that, if I had testing that I was confident about on some of the 4.6 stuff, more back-to-back stuff that's not just one cam and then another cam, if I had more stuff like that, then I could make a better choice, I think. I just want to make sure that the cams fit, and that, it would be something that you might want to drive around in. And I know the 262 cams, and I can't have them I'm not going to ask them to make more than one set. We'll just have one. So ultimately here I'll have to decide. And then obviously we want to decide based on are these turbo cams? And obviously the answer is yes, that they will be turbo cams. And given the power output, and more importantly, the displacement of this motor and the torque output of a V10, spooling the turbos is really not going to be an issue, probably with any of these cams that have available piston and valve clearance that will actually fit. It's probably not going to be an issue. I wouldn't think that having zero experience with the V10, I would think that the piston to valve issue would be, or the amount of piston to valve clearance would be similar on the V10 that it is at least on a 5.4. That's what I'm assuming going in, which tends me to lead toward the milder cams, only because if I put cams in and check piston to valve clearance, which I definitely will before we run it, I don't want to check it and have it hit and go, okay, great, now we either have to notch the cams, or these cams are useless unless we put pistons in it too, and then it's rebuilding the motor, and then that doesn't allow me to get stuff done on the dyno. If I put the 262 cams in, we know that they're going to work. We know that they're going to make power. We know that they're going to add 40-ish horsepower at least to this V10 over the stock stuff, which would be good. So if we could have that, and then the short runner manifold and long tube headers, I'm thinking we're going to be 400 plus with the V10 starting out, and then you multiply that out. It'd be nice to be at 450. I don't know if we'll get there. Obviously, with porting on the head, we could get there, but 450 would be nice if we could do that, and then adding boost plus the torque will be these things have like 100 foot-pounds more than they have horsepower. So the torque number is going to be substantial on this thing, which is why people pick the V10 anyway. So you guys let me know, help me pick out. Let's see. So the poll question we'll get today. Let's see. Should I run cams bigger than the 262 cams on the 6.8 liter V10 Ford? Excuse me, that is our poll for this morning. See what you guys got going on for this weekend. Hopefully you guys are doing some fun stuff. I'm still laser focused on 3-cylinder performance. Getaway Taylor, what's going on, guys? V10. No, I didn't say V10 Dodge. I said V10 Ford. Definitely needs a turbo cam. Yeah, it will be. They will all definitely be turbo cams. I think I've run the 262s. I've run the 274s. I don't think I ran the 278s on a modified motor with aftermarket pistons in it, but I don't think we ever ran a turbo on that one, if I can remember right. And it definitely will be the wrong cam. Points for that. That's right. Turbo race cam. And a 262 cam definitely would be towing cams. They might have something smaller than that. They do. They have they do. They have something smaller than 262s. They have 212, 218, 224, and they have a blower cam, which is a 226, 230, but on a wider LSA than that's a 262 cam, but the regular 262 is a 113, and this one's on a 116. So the idle would be better. It should make a power a little bit farther out, but not as much average torque production, I think. Richard, is there a 3-valve and a 4-valve version of the V10? There is a 3-valve version, a production 3-valve version. There's a production 3-valve or 2-valve version. And then these guys from Build It Yourself have made a 4-valve version of the V10 by cutting and welding 4-valve heads together. And we're supposed to be running that when they're ready to get it on the dyno. Why not ask her? I don't know who her is. If you could use the truck cam specs you push so often, would do well on a turbo setup for towing. Which one are you talking about? My motorhome has a Ford V10. I've literally never touched it besides regular maintenance. They're surprisingly good motors. Yeah, if you got something big and heavy to push, having more cylinders and more displacement, definitely a good way to go. Cam, springs, and then boost. Yep. A Truck Norris cam. Yeah, the COMMP cam guys are not going to be able to grind a Truck Norris modular Ford cam. Is the V10 Ford the same one that came in the GT90? I don't think so. I think that's different. It's estimated that as many as 300,000 V10s are produced by Ford. That's a lot. That's a lot more than I would have thought. Turbo Sentra, your motor runs. Congratulations. Just not with the alternator on it. That's kind of weird. Is it backfeeding the computer or something. The modular Ford V10s do have long runner intake manifolds on. If you look at the thumbnail that I have up, you can see they're very long runner manifolds because they make peak power way down low. Yeah, the GT90 was laser welded V6s together, I think is what they did. I voted yes, but really meant probably. I'm interested to see what a stock 2-valve V10 makes. We had one in an 02 250. It was very unimpressive. Perhaps the factory tune is overly safe. My 6-liter seemed more powerful. That's a definite consideration on some of these factory big motors. We saw that in the 8.1 stuff too, that the factory tune on the 8.1 is really conservative because they're trying to torque limit the thing to probably to save the transmission. I don't think that they would have had the same problem with transmission strength in the behind the V10 for the Ford side. I don't think, but maybe they did. A lot of times they do torque limit them. Would 2 additional cylinders have the same horsepower per cylinder as the V8? It should, but I don't know where the I need to see what is the rating of a. Let's see. Ford Triton. What was the power rating on? They were only rated at 260 horsepower. So that seems like it's stepping up about the same. I don't know what they did for cams on the V10 versus the 2-valve. The Coyote alternative. I know I'm looking at modular stuff and my stories keep coming up. It looks like that the power level does multiply because I think it's 260 and then 300. So 3-valve, 4-valve, 5-liter Coyote, 5.2-liter. Here we go. So anywhere from 235 horsepower, 260. No, not the supercharged ones. Yeah, 260. Yeah, it's right there. They've just added more cylinders, so it's the same motor and same specific output. Let's see here. What do you use to remove oil stains on cement? Brake clean works good, or gas also works. You can try Dawn, or maybe also Easy Off. I was told it needs a diode. It might. Would you ever do a Big Bang Honda J Series? I don't know if we'll do a Big Bang on one. Maybe we will. I'm going to do a J Series on the engine dyno. Richard, any issues you might foresee with an LS1 running a BTR Stage 3 NA cam, high RAM, factory cast 853 heads of the appropriate valve springs, L7 lifters? No, all that'll work. It's going to be a high RPM motor, but sounds like you're trying to do that anyway. An Owen Mustang OT56 car. Okay, yeah, if it's a manual trans, that's good. So Richard Reno took 2 small Chevys and welded them together, made a V16. Yeah, I remember guys doing that, but and welding the blocks together is actually the easy part. All of the rest of it is harder. I don't know what rod and piston combo to do my 4.6. Why doesn't GM have a V10? Obviously, they don't think that they need it. Forced induction goes a long way for and diesel stuff for for torque and towing. Guys seem to have gone away from the GM had the 8.1, so they already had a big motor. I mean, an 8.1 is bigger in displacement than a 6.8 liter, so it's quite a bit bigger. So it has lots of torque. The 8.1 is a good motor. Floor dry, scrubbed in. Oven cleaner is a good idea. Yeah, oven cleaner works good. Only 260. The 260 was the 5.4. Yeah. I use oven cleaner to degrease aluminum heads. The aluminum block is way harder to clean than the painted iron. It is the aluminum blocks, the ones I get from the wrecking yard, like the L33 and stuff, don't look as good as the iron blocks. The iron blocks, after you clean them and paint them, they look brand new. But the aluminum stuff, I think you'd have to etch to get them to make them nice, like that they were, when they were new. Dawn, soap and water, shop broom for scrubbing, then blast with a pressure washer. A pressure washer also works good. We've done that before. To get oil stains off concrete, use powder dry laundry detergent. Yep, we've done that. We use Tide works pretty good. We used to use that at West Tech. How's our poll doing? Should I run cams bigger than the 262 cams on the V10? 71% are saying go big. Go big or go home. I wonder if anyone ever clear anodized an aluminum block. That might work. It works really good on other stuff. Barry, I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know the swap over on the bolt pattern from a 94 to an 04. I don't remember when they started, when they employed that specific bolt pattern for the heads. I don't remember what the change. 94, I tend to think is earlier and has a different bolt pattern, but I can't swear to that. I always put cardboard under the car when changing oil. That's a good idea. I love a painted iron block, aluminum covers and heads. Yeah, it looks good. GM did pretty good with their big blocks. Those worked pretty well, and there was obviously a lot more power potential if they wanted to do that from the combinations that they put together. Boraxo for cleaning concrete. Yep, that also works. I remember washing my hands with that stuff, Ajax, and we'd mix some Dawn and Ajax. I'm sure that that's got to be bad for you. Powder Tide. Yep. Oh, that's good. And then we went through the orange cleaner stuff, and then the lava soap, and all the different kinds of things. Purple Power and Dan, my favorite engine colors are 1968 and up Ford engine dark blue, and I like Chevy orange and Mopar's. Is the Mopar orange different than the Chevy oranges? I've seen a couple of Dulcich's motors, his Mopars there at West Tech when he's testing them, and he did a nice job on them, like the Slant 6 and stuff. The Slant 6 that I have is blue because it was that. I don't think it actually was a Super 6, but I think that that's the color that they painted it. These days for my hands, I just use dish soap and scrub. I use Dawn for if I'm working on stuff, and then I love the spray Dawn. I can't understand how we ever were without that, but it works good. Mint Mobile commercials are getting old. I'm here for Richard, not Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds is hilarious though. I'm a big fan. My car has been leaking oil for years. Not sure if it's ever going to be normal. My truck was leaking oil for a long time, and then I had somebody put a new rear main seal and stuff in it. But I think now that, and I thought that I remember putting new intake gaskets on it, and then we flowed the injectors. Maybe it needs, I think it's got maybe, no, I thought I put valve cover seals, new valve cover gaskets in it. And then I think it has a bad, a leaky or loose oil pressure sender too. Have you heard of a closed deck on an EJ Subaru motor? A friend wants to do this for more power. I don't know a lot. I'm not in the Subaru community. I've never tested even run any of those motors. I've driven a WRX before. It helped my buddy Gary when he was racing his a little bit, but I didn't ever do any testing on them, so I'd be the wrong guy to ask. It's interesting that you asked that though, because I've been thinking about doing that a deck insert, closed decking the little Metro motor. Bleach and ammonia mixed together, yeah, are not good. Nope. You get a Saturn View. Yeah. They do have J series in those. The Summit transmission's working good so far. My Tahoe is getting high mileage on it. I'm planning ahead. Does it have the vet? It does have the second gear. It has the Corvette servo on it, and the first second shift is good. L66 is the GM RPO code for a Honda J35. See, look at that. They're appropriating the Honda stuff. Could you explain closed deck? Well, right now, like a lot of motors, like the Honda B series is a perfect example of that. The cylinders come up, and then the outside of the block is not touching the cylinders. The cylinders are floating and not floating there because they're solid, but there's nothing connecting the side of the block to the cylinders. And so what closed decking does on a closed deck, all of that is sealed. Basically, there are just holes in it. It's all solid with flow holes for the coolant, and then the outside of the block, that structure and the sleeve structure are all connected. So that's a lot stronger. So what you do on an open deck block where they're not touching is you make a CNC, usually aluminum insert, and you press that in. When you do that, though, you want to make sure that that you want to make sure that the press fit is right, or that it's a non-press fit. You want to make sure that you don't distort the cylinders. I think it's a good idea to remachine the block after you do that. Um, if you can, welding it in place and then resurfacing it, I think is a good idea. But there are a lot of different ways to do that. I've always wanted to see a modded modular V10. There you go, a mods for mods. And that would close out my mods for mods series that I did for Muscle Mustangs and Fast Forwards. Oh, those many years ago, because I never did a V10. I did 2-valve, 3-valve, 4-valve. I did 5.4 stuff, but 5.4 4-valve though. We did the GT40 or the GT500 motors and also the Ford GT motors. I didn't do 5.4 2-valve though, or 5.4 3-valve. Yeah, literally deck. Yeah, you're putting a deck in there where there's no deck. That's what you're doing. There is a lot that goes into doing it right. They used to sell for the Honda B series. Guys sold deck inserts, and it takes a lot to put it in correctly. It's not something that the average guy should do, considering that a lot of the average Honda guys were putting turbos on their motors and blowing them up because they didn't ever put bigger injectors or change the timing or anything like that. They just put the turbo on. Ah, this thing rips. Yeah, it does. It will for a couple of runs, and then you'll blow something up. Any affordable engine stands you like for spares in the garage? All of mine, Tim, came from Harbor Freight. I don't think I've gotten any anywhere else. Measures for my cam button length. I need 892 thousandths. The cam button I have is 929. Would you shorten it, or would you? No, you can't have that much pressure. In fact, you have to have on the cam button. You don't want it touching. You need a little bit of play. There needs to be a little bit of space. I think 5 or 6 thousandths is what we normally do. And what we do is we on the cam buttons, a lot of them were like nylon or something, and then we would grind them down to fit. I know, where's Prestige at? We're talking about modular V10s. I thought that he would have just had his spidey sense would be tingling. The best sounding cars at takeovers are 2-valve 4.6 Mustangs. Got to have the right exhaust on it though. I'm in New Brunswick. Harbor Freight has a nice one for $200. Didn't they used to be really cheap? I thought that they were a lot less than that. I only get the tripod one. Sometimes I get the four leg one, because those are, for bigger motors and stuff. But you put a big block, put an iron-headed big block or one of those motors on one of those tripod stands, and if you're pushing it and you stick that front wheel, the whole thing is going to topple over. And you could see the thing like levering. On a couple of them, I welded supports down to the stand, the mount going up to the legs on the ground, just welded a support because it looked like it was a little bit sketchy. Smaller stands are cheap, but the 1 ton is 200, made for diesels. Okay, yeah, I don't do diesel stuff. Love to put 5.4 4-valve and a Mustang too. Probably need to cut the shock towers. Yeah, it's pretty wide. I have a 255 268 115 on my 3-valve V10. That has to be a those have to be advertised numbers, right? Not those aren't 50 numbers unless you have valve reliefs. So they have lots of 3-valve stuff. 255, 268. Yeah, there's some 253, 270s, 253, 274s, 261, 282s, 253, 270, 256, 267. That seems like it's close to what you're talking about. Yeah, that's got to be an advertising number. I have the steel roller one. Do you have the cam button that has the washer and the spinner and stuff on it? Small stand works great for shop. Yeah, just for setting the motors on. Let's give the Mopar V10 some love here. The Viper one, yes, definitely. Do they have cams available for the Dodge, for the truck V10? So they had two different ones. They had the Viper V10, and then they used that in some of the trucks, and then the normal truck motor was different. You have the spinny one, yeah. Usually they have for those, normally, Andy, they have shims that go back behind it, and then you shim it for whatever cover you have. And we always use the like cast aluminum or billet covers that have a provision for that. Some of you even have a threaded adjuster on them. I've seen too. Fun fact: in 1991, nobody was saying the Viper had a V10 truck engine. Yeah, it's a different motor. Richard, what's wrong with the truck version? The truck version is different. I don't know enough about the V10s, and the intake manifold's completely different. I think that I don't know. I need to look into that more. But the block is not what is going to stop it from making power. The Atlas I still have. It just hasn't been put back together. Yes. What happened to Atlas? He shrugged. Yes, and ran. I like the intake manifolds on the Vipers. I like the way they sound too. I was out there when Hennessy ran a couple of them with some top speed stuff that we did. And I like those. My wife loves those too. She likes Viper GTSs. 8.1 versus 6.8. I'm pretty sure an 8.1 is going to make a lot more torque. North, I do have a how to install a camshaft, how to swap cams for an LS video up. It's up on the site. Or North, yeah, North. Let's see. I do have it. I'm particularly confused around reinstalling the rocker arms. The rocker arms are easy. They just bolt on. The only thing that you have to concern yourself with is, do you have the right pushrod length? And I have a pushrod length video on how to check that. I wish it had shims. Yep. Pushrod video. Yeah, there's a pushrod video how to check for proper push rod length, and then how to swap cams. How to swap camage. So we're 75% are saying go big on the cams. Do the big thing, more bigness. So 262 go up to 270. And the 270 AHs I think are bigger. 234, 238, 236, 240. So the 274 is a little bit bigger in duration, but smaller in lift. And that one, it's on a 114. That's on a 113. We need those tight LSA cams, right? I wonder if 2 gaskets would be problematic with sealing. Probably not. We've done that before too. Those numbers were at lift. Bullet Racing made them V10 and a factory 5 Daytona drag car with a T56. Okay, so it's a built motor then, right? That has piston to valve clearance. So if those were at 50 numbers, then those are big cams. Yep, those would be big. Those are big-ish. .327 small block, 5/16 rod bolts. Are ARP 2000 good enough, or go for ARP 625s? Dan, what are you building, a cup motor or something? A 625 rod bolt is just ridiculous. Are you running it to 10,000 RPM? Taylor, an S500 should be good for 1250 easily. We could do that with a S480. I like the idea of the smaller cam. I want to see what a little bit bigger cam will do. It'd be nice to see where the heads are the limit also. I don't know that the cam is necessarily going to tell us that, because we have lots of things that we're working with. The intake manifold, head flow. COMMP has some V10 cam blinks that I'm doing. I don't think Vince, I don't think PAW is still in operation. I should get a lot of stuff from them. North, what you want to do is make sure that the ideally that the valve is closed. When you bolt the rocker on in whatever position the cam's in, a lot of them will be closed, and you can do that. And then what I do is with no spark plugs in it, I will bolt down all the ones on one side that the valve is closed. So you just bolt them down, and what you'll see is you'll get down to 0 lash, and then you'll tighten it, and hopefully you'll have about a turn or so of preload on the lifter. That way you know that the push rod length is right. And then on some of them, you'll go to bolt them down, and then you'll see, oh yeah, that's already wanting to press the valve because the lifter is up on the cam lobe. And then what you do is just rotate the motor to where that's not the case anymore. So you do all the ones that you can that the valve is closed, just tighten those down. And you tighten them down to 16 foot-pounds or something. It's not very much. And then close all the other ones, and then you tighten all those. Usually one turn, and not even one full turn, but one partial turn will allow you to tighten all of them on one side, and then just go do the other side. Why is your dynograph no longer a different color for each run? Because the version that I have of Run Viewer that I use to make my videos doesn't allow that now for whatever reason. I can do that at West Tech with their version because they actually have the software. I don't have the software on mine. All I have is a viewer software, and it doesn't allow me to change to differentiate. When I select this, it just puts the same color on both of them. What's my opinion on Jessel roller followers? I think that they work good. I don't use a lot of Jessel stuff because I don't make Jessel money. Do you remember the 65 Impala that was stolen back in the late 80s? That were there a lot of them that were stolen? Is there a story to that, Vince? Because I'm not familiar with what you're referring to. 77% saying go big. Go big or get out of here. I'll be kind of curious to see on the V10 what Bart's intake manifold does. We know that the short runner thing is going to lose torque down low, and for all of the torque people will run this thing because it's not going to run to. I mean, it's not going to run to 7,000. Probably not even going to run to 6,000. So we'll try to start it at 2,000 and run it as a torque kind of thing and see. But when we put the cams in it, I'm hoping it at least makes power at 5,000 or 5,500 or something. I think on the where are we making? Oh, okay. So with the cams on it, we were making power at 5,800 on the 4.6. So that would be backed up a little bit. So yeah, so maybe we could do 2,000 to 6,000 sweeps or 2,500 to 6,000 sweeps or something like that. It was a magazine car. I'm not familiar with that. If you want to borrow my 3-valve cams to do testing, I don't have a 3-valve version, and if those are 50 numbers, the only way you could run those cams is with something that has piston to valve, has more piston to valve clearance. V10 would be cool to rev high. Yeah, I don't think that's what we're going to do. I don't think we can take a 6.8 liter Ford V10 and make it into an old Formula One V10. Although those did sound really good. I like the videos. They have videos online where they have sound clips from all of the different cars, like at the same track. So they show the different era V8s and V10s and turbos and all of these things, and so you can hear the different exhaust notes. It's pretty cool. Split pin crank limitations. There, we would eventually get to that, I think, but not on the not where we're running this. Neil, your question is who makes the best V10? I don't know, the Audi V10 is a Lamborghini one, right? I thought that the V10 Audis are were Gallardo V10s. Richard, anybody out there using DSS pistons? Yes, I've used those in the past. A buddy of mine wants to put 4-inch crank in an LS3 block. We're looking at the pistons on Summit. Yeah, I've used those. Those are great. 1,000 horsepower, 1,200 foot-pounds. Okay. So that's got to be that's a turbo deal that you're doing? Those V10s sound good. But so does the Viper V10. It's just bigger though. There's a channel building a Ford V10 using the stock crank. They plan to turn it to 8,000. Is that are those the build it yourself guys that are doing the 4-valve version? The R8 is just more affordable Huracan. $800 wheel horsepower and 1,100 foot-pounds, and the crank hasn't snapped. So the split pin thing is not a problem. Yeah, where we will be on this is not going to be a problem at all. I mean, it's going to be half that. I'm curious, DJKR, why is it making more torque than horsepower though? Are you making peak power at a very low engine speed? Or do you have a weird boost curve on there or something? If you're running the cams that you said and those cam numbers were at 50, that thing should make power at a fairly high RPM. And so it should make more horsepower than torque unless you have a lot more boost down low or something. Definitely awesome to make the same torque as horsepower. Video somewhere of a V10 R8 versus a V10 Gallardo, the Audi one. Maybe, yeah, that's in any sort of comparison like that, it'd have to be, detail-y structured. It's amazing what they do with the twin turbo versions of those. There's a torque horsepower crossover point where they should be identical. Yes. Every engine ever made. Dodge truck V10, cast iron block. Good torque, but not a high RPM. Yeah, none of the OEM V10s, none of the factory ones, at least not the two that we're talking about, the Dodge V10 and then the 6.8 liter Ford V10, neither one of those are high RPM motors, not from the factory. But we could run a quad turbo V10 though. Actually, we could run an M90 on the V10 because it doesn't make enough power that wouldn't be a viable deal. So Green Bass, you're gonna have to bore your dirt bike out. DPS Turbinator VGT S500 0.5 AR to 1.5 AR or so. Yeah. That's what I'm saying though. So what I'm saying is that if it makes more torque than horsepower, it has to have more boost where it's making the torque versus where it's making the horsepower. Dan, the reason that they cross at 5252 is because of the formula for horsepower and torque. So they have to because of how they're mathematically related. Oh, so it was already bored out, green bass, on your bike engine? But the piston will fit now and you have new rings for it? And if you're really interested in the horsepower torque formula and the reasoning behind it, go do a search for James Watt. And that will tell you it will give you the story of putting the cart before the horse or the horse before the cart. I love Jeff Smith Chevelle and Dobertines Nova. Yeah, they just did at the Oakland Roadster show that was right after MPMC. They had a tribute to those old pro street cars, and that Nova was there, and the what is it, the J body car. So should race motors have cams for 5,500 RPM? The J2000, that's what it was. I don't know what you're asking. Race motors actually make power. Like if you look at a Formula One motor, it can make power all the way out at 18,000 RPM. So it doesn't make very much torque. It makes a lot of horsepower, but not very much torque. So if you make peak power at a very high engine speed, you're going to have much less torque than horsepower. If you make peak power below 5,500 RPM, you're going to have more torque than horsepower. And actually, you can even make peak power beyond that crossover point, because you could have made, like a lot of big motors do that. You can have, even if your peak horsepower comes past that crossover point, it still doesn't mean that you're going to make more horsepower than torque. Yeah, horsepower and torque is work, and work over time is what people will tell you. But it's an interesting thing to go look up. If you go look up and you go, oh, well, that's why they call it horsepower, because it was actually the amount of power that a horse could do. And then we've just continued that forever. Horsepower is torque times RPM over 50 feet, 5252. And I'm scrolling. So I'm excited. We got V10 stuff coming up and V12 stuff coming up. Good stuff. And you got 3-cylinder, 10-cylinder, and 12-cylinder. Lots of good stuff. What about W motors, like a 348 or a 409, or do you mean actually the W-shaped motors? How well do factory 3-valve head V10 heads flow? A lot more than 2-valve heads. The factory 3-valve heads from Ford actually flowed pretty well. And that motor's rated at 362 or so horsepower. compared to 310, I think, or so for the 305 or 310 for the 2-valve version, which gives you an idea. Probably a better intake manifold too. The 3-valve intake manifold was pretty good on the 4.6 stuff. Five-valve VW engines, yeah, and they had Toyota had one too that Yamaha did for them. I think their 4AG, one of their 4AGs was a 5-valve, right? Trying to keep all this stuff straight in my head. She's so fine, my 409. 409, 409. I think those things look cool. I just like the valve covers on it. In fact, when we did the 4.6, here, somebody wanted me to do the Live Long and Prosper. When we did the 4.6 3-valve stuff, the valve cover looked like 409. So we Tom, who used to work at West Tech, wrote for She's So Fine, my 409 on there. You should turn your Geo Metro into a Gazoo racer. What's a Gazoo racer? Are you talking about the Great Gazoo from the Flintstones? Five valves. I think the Ferrari was a 5-valve too. They had 5-valve versions. I think my 355 was a 5-valve. So it's a lot of work. It's a lot of stuff. My dad's 1960 Impala had a 348 tri-power in it. I did see one of those in a wrecking yard when I was in line. There was a guy over that had a W motor. It was a 348 and a 4-speed trans. And he'd pulled it out of a truck. I'm like, dude, where did you find that? He goes, I know, this is cool. I said, dude, that's a big score, man. Taylor, you should go to lunch because we're done here. I've been here an hour. So close out our poll at 75%, saying Richard, run the bigger cam. Chillin' Dylan, you were the Great Gazoo. Batwing Chevys. Yeah, my dad had one that we used to call the Batmobile. That's when you miss the golden information, is right at the end. The Goldens are not here right now. But on that note, it is time to go. But I'll see you guys tonight